So a while back, I talked about people who've lost their parents to the MAGA cult and how hard it was for them to accept that the people who raised them are so unrecognizably cruel. Now, the people that we focused on handled this in a variety of ways. Some chose to try to maintain the relationships that they had with their parents, while others just chose to go full no contact altogether because they didn't feel like it was worth the stress to try to maintain such a toxic relationship with their parents. And one of the families that I featured in that video was the Colgins, who actually have a podcast called The Necessary Conversation, where the two liberal adult children try to talk through the disagreements that they have with their MAGA parents, these two individuals, Bob and Mary Lou Colgin. Now, this is one of my favorite podcasts, I've got to say, because it is so real and so raw, and the children are trying so hard to get through to their parents, while the parents are just growing increasingly cold and detached, especially the father, Bob Colgin. And a clip from a recent episode of their podcast went viral after the father made comments that are truly shocking and reprehensible. And I'm still shocked. Like, the thing that he said, it's not shocking from MAGA, but still, seeing a parent say something like this with their full chest is crazy to me. But they were talking about whether or not troops should follow unlawful orders, and just wait until you see what they say.
Dad,
He's a traitor.
Should members of military follow unlawful orders?
Yes.
What?
They should follow any order that the president gives.
Even if it breaks laws?
That's wrong.
Because it will endanger other people if you don't follow orders.
What if he orders, hang on, what if President Trump orders a squad of army guys to walk down the street killing anyone they see? They should do it?
Yes.
Mom?
Yes.
What?
I don't
Why?
even understand. Like, how can you come to that conclusion?
Sounds to me like you lefties are now beginning to fear the fact that the military is going to get involved and your asses are grass.
Beginning to fear. I've feared this since Trump got elected the first time, that he would take control of the military and use it to do illegal shit.
It's coming to your house.
But wait a minute. You're okay with what if Donald Trump says, I want you to carpet bomb Oklahoma City, kill everyone? You think the Air Force should carry that out?
Yes.
There might be a reason. We don't know.
It actually gets worse, believe it or not. But this right here demonstrates why so many people choose to just go no contact with their MAGA parents, because how can you deal with this? I mean, these are the people who raised you, who instilled you with the values and morals that you have today. So to see them throw out everything that they taught you also they can better align with the political cult is just straight up tragic. I'd imagine it's got to be traumatizing. I have family members who are MAGA, but my parents, thankfully, are not MAGA. Now, I don't think that I could ever look my mom in the face ever again if she said that shit. Like, if she told me she'd be okay with an entire city getting carpet bombed, I just would lose all respect for her and think that she lost her mind and wouldn't know how to deal with that. And I'm assuming that these were once regular people. Like, they probably were always conservative, but, you know, you can only shift so far to the right until you arrive in straight up fascist authoritarian territory. And that's where it seems like they landed. You know, maybe they were once small government pro Second Amendment conservatives, but now they're just straight up violent fascists who are justifying mass atrocities against U.S. citizens within the borders of the country that they purport to love so much, which is wild to me. If you've ever wondered how the Nazis came to power, this right here, this is the mentality that gets Nazis in power. But I mean, this shouldn't be too surprising, since the conservative leaders that they look up to, they celebrate death and destruction on the regular. They have no problem with genocide in Gaza, and they think that Donald Trump is totally justified murdering people on boats in the Caribbean. I mean, the entire conservative movement relishes in cruelty, inflicting pain and suffering on others. It seems to fuel them. They don't just support people losing their health care and SNAP benefits, they celebrate it. They don't just support violence against immigrants and trans people and unhoused people. They celebrate it. Their overt cruelty is the glue that holds their entire movement together. And I just don't know how long the country can survive when a sizable chunk of the country is part of some psychotic extremist fucking death cult. But to get back to the Colgins, Chad tried to gauge the depth of his father's depravity by asking him whether or not he'd be okay with Trump carpet bombing a mall with, say, him, his own son, still in it. And just wait until you see the answer that his father gave, because you would think that if you personalize an answer like this, make it close to home, he would rethink, but he doesn't rethink. So listen to what he says.
This is insane. You cannot be this stupid. Jesus fucking Christ.
Oh my. This podcast was going well until that.
Are you kidding?
Until you guys said it's fine for...
You just said it's cool if he fucking levels Oklahoma. You're like, yeah, fuck it. There must be a reason. Like, you literally can't be that dumb.
You know what the problem is? Mom and I don't believe he'll ever blow up Oklahoma because we're on his side and so's the whole state.
No, it's because you're in a fucking cult.
You guys are worried and afraid because you live in a state where it might happen.
Okay, let's theoretically say that does happen. Let's say Trump sends in the Marines to Los Angeles, California, and let's say I'm out going to see a movie on a weekend, and he says, go into that shopping mall. Shut up, quiet piggy. He says, go into that shopping mall and kill everyone you see. And let's say I get gunned down by the Marines for just being at a mall.
Number one, let's just take it one
Dad,
step
wait a minute,
further.
Mom, wait 1 second. Wait 1 second. Dad, hang on, Mom.
Hang on.
Dad, you just said you are for Donald Trump murdering me for no reason, and you would support that.
If he walks into a mall to kill people with military,
there has to be a reason.
There's a reason, and I'm all for it. And
what if the reason is
Los
crushing
Angeles,
dissent?
California are as deserving of execution as the fucking assholes in New York City. You're
including
all fucking communists.
Number one, Donald Trump would never give an order like that. And if you believe that, I really feel sad for you.
I have no fucking words. They both just said that if their own son got gunned down by the military, if Trump gave that order, then Trump would have had a good reason for giving that order. That is genuinely insane. This is their son. I'm assuming that they raised him from birth. They saw him take his first steps. They were there on his first day of school and watched him graduate. But despite all of that, all of the history that they have raising this human being, they would be A-okay with him getting executed because the president must have had a good reason for executing their son. What do you even say to that? How do you get through to people who are this far gone? Like, these people are truly demented demons. And just from my own personal experience, I don't think that this is, a situation where they're outliers. I don't think that they're exceptions to the rule. I think they are the rule. The Trump supporters in my family would probably agree based on, some of the things that they've told me. Not all of them, but some of them would definitely be okay with mass murder at a minimum. Because once you've decided that liberals and leftists are your mortal enemy and you have to defeat them at all costs, that biological parental instinct that you once had that kind of tethered you to reality, that becomes severed. And at that point, even the murder of your own kids is permissible, since they're also the enemies that have been thoroughly dehumanized by the cult that you've decided to join. It's just so sad. And even though Chad seems to have pretty thick skin, he later remarked in the podcast that he couldn't believe that his own father just said he's okay with Trump murdering him. How do you deal with that? It's gotta hurt. And I'm going to link you to the full episode down below if you want to see the entire exchange. Highly recommend the podcast. It is tragic and infuriating, but I think that Chad and Haley, the children here, they make it tolerable because they're genuine and they care and they're just trying to do what they think they need to do as kids and just have these conversations with their parents. But I mean, they're not going anywhere, clearly. So I do feel bad for them. And the more episodes that I watch, the more it becomes clear that they're talking to fucking brick walls. There's no point in engaging with their parents. If they're my parents, I would have cut them off long ago. Now, I can't help but think that this is indicative of what so many other MAGA loyalists believe, which is why you see this growing trend of people cutting off their MAGA parents who refuse to stop disrespecting their own children. And even if people aren't cutting off their parents for political reasons per se, there always seems to be an underlying personality type of the parents in question that feels inherently Trumpian to me, even if we don't know if they support Trump. And I want to show you what I mean by that. So I came across this thread in the millennial subreddit where millennials were referred to as the estrangement generation by a boomer in a Facebook group titled Grandparents Being Punished and Can't See or Talk to Grandchildren. Nice name. And of course, there was no introspection from this person whatsoever, and they simply couldn't comprehend why so many young people were cutting off their toxic parents. They wrote, "When I was a kid, being part of a family meant something. We had full family get-togethers for birthdays and holidays, marriages, births, and even deaths." They go on to say, "The millennials are the estrangement generation. It has become a true crisis of family, with more and more of them becoming so self-absorbed as to want nothing to do with the bonds our generation thought would last forever. They have learned to blame and reject instead of hashing things out and forgiving. They have learned to not put themselves in another's shoes or learned what compassion is." And it's incredibly rich that this person would say this, seeing as how they're the ones who are actually self-absorbed, so much so that they're bitching about their kids cutting them off in a group called Grandparents Being Punished without ever considering why they'd be punished in the first place. It's not their own behavior. It's not the things that they did that they could have done better. They never consider what they did and how they're part of the equation that made the whole relationship crumble. It's just their kids. It's their kids who are being selfish because they're refusing to put aside the issues that they have with them, and that makes them a victim. And I think that there's a lot of overlap between this victim mentality and the conservative persecution complex. These people only care about compassion insofar as it impacts them personally. Compassion to them is a one-way street. They don't have to have it for you, but you sure as shit better have it for them. And if I had to guess, this narcissistic, whiny mentality is precisely why these kinds of people were drawn to Trumpism in the first place, because Trump gives these kinds of people permission to think that the world should revolve around them. They see themselves in Donald Trump, who doesn't care about anyone but himself. He's a self-obsessed, narcissistic prick. And the replies in that thread suggest that their parents have that exact same mentality. Here's how some of them responded to that post. "Imagine not respecting people's easily followable boundaries and being mad about it. Looks like the me generation at it again. Baby boomers would rather die than be accountable or take responsibility for their faults. Boomers realizing their kids never calling or visiting is the result of their shitty, selfish, and narcissistic behavior. Oh, they're blaming us instead of taking responsibility? Yeah, that tracks. Generations before millennials also got help from their parents, so they might have been more willing to put up with abusive behavior from their parents. Our generation gets very little help from our parents, yet we're expected to still accept toxic, emotionally abusive behavior as normal. That's a no from me, dog. The boomers are so mad that they can't just treat people like shit anymore and expect them to put up with it." And for the record, it's not all boomers, obviously. There are so many kind boomers that I've heard from personally who watch this channel, who are kind and empathetic and caring, and they reject the brainwashing that their generation was subjected to. But when I read these replies to that thread, these are all common themes that we're hearing from people about their parents who decided to go low or no contact, regardless if it was for political reasons or not. So in my last video about MAGA parents, one girl talked about how she tried to establish boundaries with her Trump-supporting father and just tried to get him to agree at the bare minimum to not talk about politics around her, but he couldn't even respect that. He couldn't help himself, and he actually got worse after she tried to establish that boundary. So, I understand why people are doing what they're doing, and I even understand the people who don't have the stomach to even try to be around their parents for political reasons, right? Because political reasons is such a loaded term, because it's not just the mere political disagreement. If you believe that immigrants don't have a right to be in this country, or if you think that, genocide is good. I mean, it's obvious why a trans person, for example, would feel betrayed by a parent or loved one who voted for Trump. Because if you're voting for a president who denies your humanity, That is inherently disrespectful, and you have every right to not associate with people who vote for politicians that try to get you to not exist. But in these situations, the parents see it as a mere minor political disagreement, and they think that the kid is being petty, and they oftentimes have the audacity to act like they're the ones who are being persecuted, even though they're voting for the persecution of somebody that they're supposed to love and look out for. And even though politics isn't always the reason for kids going no contact, it is one of the main reasons why people are cutting off contact with family members these days. A poll released by the American Psychiatric Association found that 1 in 3 Americans expect to have heated discussions about politics with family during election seasons, and 1 in 5 Americans have become estranged from family due to disagreements over controversial topics, usually involving politics. And for me personally, it's all of the above. A MAGA family member who I cut off also happens to be transphobic and narcissistic and toxic, and also supports Donald Trump. So I don't think it's a coincidence that most diehard Trump cultists seem to all have similar personality traits, which makes total sense, because if you are a naturally thoughtful, introspective person who cares about the well-being of others, you're generally going to be turned off by Trump and Trumpism. Conversely, if you're a self-obsessed piece of shit moron who refuses to take responsibility for your own actions, it makes sense why you'd want to gravitate towards a fascist demagogue who behaves in the same way. But to go back to the Colton family, it is so sad to see so many people, not just older generations, by the way, but so many people have their brains hijacked by an extremist death cult. That to me is tragic. At a certain point in time, I'm assuming that Chad's parents at least tried to be loving and caring. So I can't imagine how hurtful it is to just see your parents devolve into spiteful, grievance-fueled Nazis. It's sad. And as hard as it is to let go of somebody that you care about so much, like your parents, it doesn't make you a bad person to say enough is enough. It makes you a reasonable person who has enough dignity and self-respect to recognize that you deserve peace.